Take a deep breath. Hold it in. Let it out. Hey, Space Cadet. Have you been vaccinated yet? Maybe you have posted on social media your celebration of being fully vaccinated, or told every one of your friends on Facebook that you were about to get vaccinated, and then checked in every day thereafter to tell your friends about how you felt after receiving your shots. Said it wasn't that bad. You survived. Maybe you listened to the broadcast by Z-Dog MD, the gay chic doctor with the bald head and fur coat, and heard his latest infomercial on the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine that is available in one quick shot, no second shot, that was found to be 66% efficacious, and thought you could easily do one shot to get vaccinated instead of two because you really don't like needles. But do you know what it means when a drug or treatment is approved under the New Drug Application Procedure, or NDA, as they say in intellectual property law, or under the Emergency Use Authorization, EUA, for treatments rushed through approvals to address the pandemic pathogen disease COVID-19? It may not mean what you think it means. That's all I'm saying. First of all, when the world was concerned about the outbreak of infections aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt back March, April timeframe of last year, and the possibility that sailors aboard the aircraft carrier might die, young sailors going to die of COVID-19, President Trump and Dr. Carson were under a lot of pressure, fighting off the press and Nancy Pelosi in Congress, trying to interpret a specific provision of the United States Code to authorize pharmaceutical companies to go ahead with the development of vaccines. Specifically, 21 U.S.C. Section 360 BBB-3, authorization for medical products for use in emergencies, but only under specified circumstances. Specifically, the Secretary, Dr. Carson, may make a declaration that the circumstances exist justifying the authorization under this subsection for a product on the basis of a determination by the Secretary of Homeland Security that there is a domestic emergency or a significant potential for domestic emergency involving a heightened risk of attack with biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents. That sounds like biowarfare. B, a determination by the Secretary of Defense that there is a military emergency or a significant potential for military emergency involving a heightened risk to the United States military forces, including personnel operating under the authority of Title 10 or Title 50, of attack with a biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents, or an agent or agents that may cause or otherwise associated with an imminently life-threatening and specific risk to United States military forces, which we actually had. But it was a disease, right? C, a determination by the Secretary that there is a public health emergency or a significant potential for a public health emergency that affects or has significant potential to affect national security or the health and security of United States citizens not living here, but living abroad. And that involves a biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents, or a disease condition that may be attributable to such agent or agents. Again, we're talking about biological warfare. D, the identification of a material threat pursuant to Section 319F-2 of the Public Health Service Act, 42 U.S.C. 247D-6B, sufficient to affect national security or the health and security of the United States citizens living not here, but abroad. So it appears that the outbreak aboard the aircraft carrier in Guam arrived just in time to help the pharmaceutical companies begin to develop the vaccine that you now have inside your area ready to be distributed to you if you haven't already gotten it. Isn't that a huge coincidence? Did you know that while the Theodore Roosevelt was detained on Guam from the beginning of April to the beginning of June, some have estimated that based upon serological samples, the number of infected crew was much larger than the 1,300 some odd sailors that had been originally reported. And they estimate that probably 2/3 of the entire ship's company had been infected with COVID-19 and probably were only asymptomatic and undetected aboard a ship that can berth over 5,000 sailors and flight crew. And that's a lot. But did you know that in that short time period, among the crew that had been infected, who should have developed some kind of immunity from their prior infections and exposure, some crew members actually got reinfected again in that short time? What is that? April, May, June? Like under 2 months. That's not a long time to be protected from prior exposure. But it probably does not concern you at all that when they approve the EUAs or emergency use authorizations, the pharmaceutical companies were only required to guarantee just 2 months of protection, not lifetime. And if getting COVID-19 doesn't give you immunity for 2 months, how far do you think 1 or 2 shots are going to get you? Think about it. But let's, for the moment, talk about the medical term efficacy. You may think that that means that you are protected, sealed, closed off from infection. But the pharmaceutical companies rushing to obtain approval for the vaccines that you now have, efficacy means the ability to produce an immune response. An immune response, not to prevent infection. And if you have ever been tear gassed and started to cough and sneeze, found your nose running and your eyes tearing, you know exactly, very, very graphically, what an immune response looks like, feels like. But do you think that that makes you good to go? It induced an immune response, so you should be good to go, right? Stay inside that smoke. You'll be okay. Walk it off, walk it off. The fact is that even after a year, scientists still have not figured out the infectious dose for COVID-19, or exactly how many of these virus particles have to land in your respiratory tract. That's your nose and your mouth, for those that needed the cartoons at CDC to tell you last August, to give rise to a disease condition. And that is only because they, for unknown reasons, totally discarded Koch's postulates. And we all, as scientists, know what that is. The way that epidemiologists have been validating causation for disease since Dr. Koch first developed the protocols in 1870, not long after the Civil War, trying to figure out exactly how anthrax works. Yes, anthrax has been around that long. It is just 4 simple tests. Check the block a scientist has to perform. First, identify the pathogen in 100% of the infected persons. Very scientific. Step 2, isolate the pathogen and take a good look at it. Obtain the genetic sequencing and post pictures on Facebook for everyone to see what it looks like. And most of you could probably draw your own artist rendition of the invisible enemy by now. But after that, a scientist is supposed to act like a scientist and do an experiment with a healthy cell, dropping those bad boys one at a time on that cell to see exactly what happens. How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop? Because that is the infectious dose that has to be prevented or blocked. From there, he just goes back in, pulls that little bad boy out and see if it still looks like the thing that he put in. Too easy, right? So why hasn't that been done? You think that might affect the efficacy of your vaccine that is only efficacious at producing an immune response? Never mind, there's a sucker born every day. We'll have a great laugh after the pandemic. If the rush vaccine doesn't kill you, of course. Check out the big brains on breast. Sucker! And so here is the truth. My name is Major Mike Webb. And by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Virginian and every American true to, like the motto of the infantry, follow me, and we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all come back now. Yep.
Oh, you're a mountain from which there flows a fountain. So let its water wash my sins away. 'Cause I am a seeker and you are a keeper. You are a teacher, won't you teach me the way? Reach out and lead me, guide me and keep me.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
Of your care each day. 'Cause I am a seeker and you are a keeper. You are a leader. me the way. You are a leader, won't you show me the way?
And y'all come back now. Him.